James Gunn was talking about the soundtrack for Suicide Squad and other things that he's had. Like, and I just wanted to say I put that in the thing because I love the fact that he's bringing back like soundtracks. To movies,
like Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, I have the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtracks on vinyl just for fun.
I got the first one on cassette.
Yeah, just because so it's a cassette. From,
it was on Record Store Day. They had a special. Yeah.
See, and that's fun. Like, I love that he's bringing great music back. Not only just great music, but music to movies in general. Because in the '90s, soundtracks were huge.
Yeah,
I mean, they had Top Gun soundtrack. I mean, even in other they had, not only did they have soundtracks, they had 3 versions. They had like one music that was in the movies, and then there was one that was like music that was inspired by the movie, which might not even be in the movie. You're like, why is this even part? And then the third one's like, oh, this is the theatrical score. And so like they could probably make a ton of money off of that, but nobody listens to that or buys that stuff nowadays.
I remember the first Tomb Raider movie. Well, it was either the first or the second one. I can't remember. That had the remix of "Get Your Freak On" by Missy Elliott with Nelly Furtado. It was almost as big as the original "Get Your Freak On."
Yeah,
but I remember that soundtrack was like, it was one of those that was half and half. It was like there might only been 4 songs in the movie, and then they filled out the rest of the soundtrack with like inspired by. But those used to be called like music from and inspired by Tomb Raider or whatever. I remember having an argument about that with a friend. So like, there was a friend I used to tour with, and we had a horrible falling out. But before this, like, his wife was even worse. And we were working with someone who wrote novels, and she chose his song to like be the theme song to her novel, And so the PR went and rolled out, and it was like inspired by blah 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 book series, And this dude's wife just could not be happy for anybody. He was just like, he wrote that song for me, not for that book. And like went on like a tirade on social media, like discounting any PR that was being done. He's like, this is not part of that book. I'm like, do you not understand what's inspired by? Like, it fits the theme. Like the author people liked it.
Didn't you get money for this? Just shut up.
Yeah. But that it was like, I don't know. So I get it being like, oh, that wasn't like part of the movie, but it felt like it could have been, because once again, it was more that it was kind of like playlist culture before playlists like were around, Like I mean, we could do mixtapes, like we did mixtapes all the time.
Oh yeah,
but as
off
far
the
as
radio mixtapes.
Yeah,
yep.
So you have like a DJ or like your mom yelling at you in the background or something. But like the soundtracks were like a clean way of doing that. So it's like music inspired by Tomb Raider. It's like, I like Big Boob Angelina Jolie on the cover and most of the songs on the CD. That works out for prepubescent, or not like college age Rod.
Yeah.
Like.
I don't think I bought a soundtrack until CDs were out. I don't think I ever got one like on a tape.
What got me into music was the soundtrack for Cocktail, I think it was.
Ooh,
because it had like
cut.
all those like 50s songs or whatever, like Chuck Berry and a bunch of other things. I think that was Cocktail. I could be wrong.
That was on CD or tape?
No, that was on cassette. This was back in like probably 87.
I think the first soundtrack I got.
No, I think about it. Yeah, go ahead.
I think the first soundtrack I got on cassette was Simpsons Sing the Blues.
I remember I didn't actually get one. My brother gave me The Crow soundtrack on tape.
That'd be
good
some
one.
Metal and everything else. Dark, deep guitar tone.
That was a great soundtrack. I forget all the shit that was on there.
It could be like industrial on it too. I'm sure that was about the time, wasn't it?
It's funny. We were talking a couple episodes ago about the Street Fighter the movie soundtrack.
Oh yeah,
I had like that. Who was even on that? And then I like looked. I'm like, this was actually a pretty dope rap soundtrack. Why was it rap? Sure, like it was. So
I remember
random.
not liking it though.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what was on it, and I was into rap at the time. I just don't know. I just remember being like, this is boring.
These were like deep cut. Like besides maybe Ice Cube, they weren't really like mainstream. Like Far Side. I think people respect. I can't ever say that like you could just throw some Far Side on in the club and like everybody would know what it is.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. It was interesting. I was like, huh. Whoever, I don't know who put this soundtrack together, who decided this will be the motif of this movie.
The Crow soundtrack has a ton of great stuff on here. About half of it is really good. The Stone Temple Pilots, Nine Inch Nails, Rage Against the Machine, Violent Femmes, Helmet, Pantera.
Helmet, man, I forgot about that.
The Cure.
The Cure makes sense.
All of that fits that movie.
Even if The Cure musically didn't sound right, they're like, we have to have it because of the dude. Like,
yeah.
Oh man.
And
I like that Helmet song, Milk Toast.
Like I think like Mortal Kombat, the movie and the game soundtrack. Like I don't want to say it was the first because like it probably wasn't, but like was the first in my mind, or the mainstream that like really made like the soundtrack like that's the only context that song fit in. You know, even though it became like a worldwide hit, like an artist wouldn't necessarily just be able to release that without like that game.
Yeah,
you know, context.
It wouldn't make any sense. The only reason that people like it is because it was in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, but then it was like, oh, this is a catchy song.
Yeah,
no one can forget
it's
it.
fun.
Like, but like, it feels just like we released now. We're like, we're gonna do this like mostly instrumental thing with a guy yelling over it. You know, like maybe I don't know. Like,
I'd forgot because I think we'd said in an older podcast that you could order the CDs in when you got the game or whatever. It came with like, hey, send this in and we'll send you the CD. I've totally forgot about that. Killer Instinct, I think, had one too.
Well, see, the Mortal Kombat one that you could order was a different one. That was music from the game.
Yeah.
And that's really hard to find nowadays.
Oh, yeah?
ThinkGeek actually did a vinyl release of those. And I tried to get it, and it sold out in like 3 seconds.
The coolest stuff on ThinkGeek sells out real quick.
There was a I can't remember which Power Rangers game it was, Nintendo or Sega or something. But the soundtrack on that game I loved so much that I remember dubbing onto a cassette tape and listening to later, like on my own time.
I used to, you know, those little recorders for kids that has a little microphone you can hold the button in and record.
Oh yeah.
When X-Men '92 was on the cartoon season, I would record the theme song every single week. So like, literally after about 10 of them in a row, you know, it's like, I don't know, the song's maybe like a minute long or whatever.
Yeah.
So you got like 10 minutes of that song. It's a doodle-doo, and it'd stop and start again. And we just jump around like with fake playing cards and whatnot, throwing it at each other. And my mom just got so pissed. She's like, what? Why is that song still going? I just sat there every single week with that stupid microphone next to the television set, like recording it. All right, it's coming up. We're going to record it one time.
It's just
Here we
on
go.
repeat.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Since for Josh already knows, but for anybody that's new here and doesn't know, like Vincent actually did a collaboration with NerdSync and Ron Wasserman, who wrote the X-Men theme song. And you can go watch our video on NerdSync and on our channel.
I'll plug it in both the audio, because we do the podcast audio stuff if you're new this week, and we also have like a video version on YouTube so you can see our fun faces. I'll put the link in both of that to where you can go see their video. It's really great. I loved it.
And he tells a story there about like how little he had to make that song. So like if you're not a musician, you might not be able to pick up that like that's not a real guitar on that song. It's like a synth guitar. Actually, all the instruments are piano. Synthetic. Like it was all like a keyboard MIDI thing. And so on our channel we have like the full interview with him that's not cut up into the NerdSync video. You can see on there he talks about like all the equipment that he didn't have, that he actually sabotaged some stuff, like he poured coke into a board to try to get new stuff. But when he was actually doing the X-Men theme song, he had very little to work with. He made it happen anyway. And then because at the time they didn't know how big the show and the song was going to be, all the masters are gone. Like all they have are like archival stuff. They don't have original sessions or anything. They just had to record over it for the next project. And I remember stories like, because you know, obviously you're not just the only, like all of us like who grew up with that show, like whether we danced around to it or like we remember it to this day or both, whatever, it affected us heavily. And it's probably one of the most influential like pieces of pop culture music. And Ron didn't have any excuses doing it. He didn't even get credit for it.
Yeah.
Like Haim Saban, who made the show, fake name Shuki Levy took credit for the song, which was part of the contract. So it wasn't like that shady, but like he just did it. You know, he made great music and it affected like a generation or more to come. And like, so I think of that, like if you're watching and you're like a writer or a musician or an artist, whatever, just fucking do it. Like, don't make up all the reasons you can't do something because whatever you don't have, you know, like Ron did it with like a keyboard, some MIDI, and some outdated equipment, and they made one of the most classic theme songs ever.
It's still fun to this day. Like I'll listen to it and be like, dang, that sounds really good. It gets me pumped still whenever I hear that song.
Ron also did, so this is actually funny, on our last live stream on our KVC channel, we were like 90s one-hit wonders, and someone was like, oh, the X-Men theme song. I was like, actually, Ron also wrote the Power Rangers theme song. Same story though, very little equipment, and he sang the demo, and he was like off pitch for a lot of it. And if you go back and actually listen to it now, you'll hear it. But like when we were growing up, you associate with so many good things. You're not really paying attention to that.
There's a lot of stuff though, even in the 90s when pitch correction, like today, because I work in the music industry, pitch correction is so easy, or at least for decent singers. In the 90s, even there's stuff that like just makes me cringe. Like I'll listen to stuff that played on the radio, and you're like, "Ooh, how did that get past anybody?"
There's just that weird feeling of, you know, being a kid listening to the Power Rangers theme song. You know, the show comes on, having that like distinct memory of the song and then meeting Ron and him telling us the story, that was like I was like, whoa.
Yeah, and he's a cool dude. You'll see all this stuff in the video.
Hey, if you like this clip and want to watch the rest of the podcast, go ahead and click on the top video there. But it'd be awesome also if you could give us a like if you like this stuff, and heck, if you didn't like it, go ahead and give us a down. That's cool. I mean, it's whatever, whatever.